Every day you wake up with less life than you had yesterday. Most people don't realize it, but time is not passing by. It is being taken from you, second by second. And every second wasted is a piece of your life you will never get back. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, warned us 2,000 years ago. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. He saw that people guard their money as if it were sacred, yet hand out their hours as if they were worthless. Think about your own life. How many days have dissolved into distractions, into routines you barely remember, into scrolling and noise that left nothing behind? How many moments have you traded away as if you would live forever? Here is the brutal truth. Life is not a rehearsal. This is it, right now. And if you waste this moment, it is gone forever. That is why we are going to explore Seneca's timeless warning, how you are spending the only currency that truly matters, and how grasping the value of time can transform not only how you live, but what your life means at all. Seneca lived in ancient Rome, a society filled with politics, spectacle, and endless distractions. Even then, he saw how people wasted their lives chasing things that gave them nothing in return. He wrote that life is long enough if you know how to use it, but most of us hand it away in fragments, scattering our hours on pursuits that leave no mark. Rome had gossip, feasts, and public games. We have smartphones, binge-watching, and social media. The tools have changed, but the temptation is the same, to let our days dissolve into nothingness while convincing ourselves that real life will begin later. But later never comes. Later is a mirage. It is where dreams go to die. Every hour spent in distraction is an hour that could have been used to build, to connect, to live fully. Seneca's words are even sharper today because our distractions are not just available, they are engineered. Whole industries exist to capture your attention, to keep you scrolling, to trade your irreplaceable time for their profit. Hours disappear into feeds and notifications, and when you finally look up, you don't even remember what you consumed. What you do remember is the emptiness that follows. This is what makes Seneca's wisdom timeless. He was not warning about technology, he was warning about human nature, the tendency to forget that time is life itself. When we waste time, we are not just being careless. We are surrendering the only thing we can never get back. And the most frightening part is that most people don't even realize it until it's too late. They imagine they are preparing to live, when in truth, they are postponing life indefinitely. Most people think of wasted time as hours lost to obvious distractions, another episode, another night out, another scroll through an endless feed. But the most dangerous theft of time is subtle. It comes not from dramatic crises, but from habits so small we barely notice them. Psychologists call it automatic living. You wake up, follow the same routines, answer the same messages, react to the same triggers, and move through the day as if on autopilot. Tasks get done, responsibilities are met, but you are never truly present. This is the silent thief. Autopilot robs you not only of hours, but of depth. It turns life into a blur of repetition, where you cannot even remember what you did last week because none of it was lived with intention. Seneca warned about this centuries ago. He saw people drifting through their days as if they had an infinite supply of them. His reminder was sharp. Life is long enough, if it is lived well. The problem is not its length, but our tendency to hand it away piece by piece, without noticing what we've lost. In our world, this is only intensified. Hours vanish into notifications, shallow conversations, and the illusion of busyness. We mistake activity for meaning. We fill our calendars, rush from task to task, and tell ourselves that being busy is the same as being alive. But when the day ends, what remains? Often nothing but exhaustion, without a sense of progress or purpose. This is why time slips through our hands, not because we lack it, but because we trade it for things that leave us empty. The true danger is not that our days are stolen outright, but that they are worn away, drop by drop, until we look back and wonder where the years have gone. If time is the currency of life, then every choice you make is a purchase. The question is whether you are buying meaning or emptiness. Most people never ask what their hours are really worth, not in terms of money or productivity, but in terms of meaning. They spend years climbing ladders they don't even want to be on, chasing goals that were handed to them by family, society, or their younger selves. By the time they pause to ask what truly matters, much of their life has already slipped away. Seneca would tell us to examine our lives as if we were impartial observers. Step back and watch yourself. Where do your days actually go? Do your choices reflect the person you want to become, or do they simply maintain the person you have always been? Socrates warned that the unexamined life is not worth living, and this is why. Without reflection, time scatters in every direction. With reflection, it begins to align. The key is values. Once you know what you stand for, time becomes clearer. If you value creativity, then hours spent on shallow distractions reveal themselves as theft. If you value relationships, then endless busyness disguised as importance is exposed as neglect. If you value growth, then comfort and repetition show themselves as obstacles, not rewards. Values are the compass that turns your hours into a coherent life. But alignment requires sacrifice. You cannot live a life of meaning and still say yes to everything. Every hour you spend on one thing is an hour you cannot spend on another. Every yes contains a hidden no. The question is not whether you are willing to sacrifice, but what you are willing to sacrifice for. And the tragedy is that most people never decide. They allow others to decide for them. To live intentionally is to choose your sacrifices. To say no to what does not matter so you can say yes to what does. This is what it means to align time with values. Without that alignment, the days continue to vanish. With it, life begins to take shape. One of the greatest thieves of time is not laziness, but busyness. We mistake motion for progress, activity for achievement, and schedules for significance. A person can fill every hour with meetings, errands, and messages, and still feel a deep hollowness at the end of the day. Busyness gives the appearance of a full life, but often it is only a mask covering the absence of direction. In Seneca's Rome, people wasted their lives in gossip, in political games, and in preparing endlessly for futures that never arrived. Today we fill our calendars with endless commitments, convincing ourselves that being busy is the same as being alive. But busyness is often avoidance. It allows us to escape the discomfort of stillness, where we might be forced to face the truth that we do not know what really matters to us. This is why so many people defend their busyness so fiercely. To slow down would mean confronting the emptiness beneath the activity. It is easier to keep running, even without knowing why. But Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and the other Stoics all warned against this. They insisted that the measure of life is not length, nor the number of tasks accomplished, but depth. A single hour lived with full awareness contains more life than a week spent rushing from one triviality to the next. Busyness is seductive because it feels important. The phone is buzzing, the inbox is full, the schedule is packed, and for a moment, you feel indispensable. But the truth is that much of this noise is nothing more than distraction dressed in the clothing of urgency. When the day ends, you may have been active, but were you alive? To escape the illusion of busyness, you must be willing to pause, to let go of the comfort of constant motion, and to ask yourself a frightening question. If nothing in my schedule changed tomorrow, would I be proud of how my time is being spent? If the answer is no, then busyness is not serving you, it is consuming you. The moment you begin to guard your time, you will face resistance. People will expect the old version of you, the one who said yes to every request, who was always available, who handed out hours as if they had no cost. Saying no becomes not only an act of self-respect, but also an act of defiance against a culture that glorifies constant availability. This is why saying no feels so uncomfortable. We are taught to equate it with rejection, with selfishness, even with failure. But every yes is also a no. When you say yes to one thing, you are saying no to something else: your rest, your health, your growth, or your deeper commitments. The difference is whether you are aware of the trade. Most people are not. They hand out their hours freely and only later realize what was lost. Seneca's warning is clear. Wealth can be regained, but time cannot. To protect it requires boundaries. To protect it requires the courage to disappoint others so that you do not betray yourself. This does not mean cutting all ties or refusing every request. It means weighing them against the only currency that matters, your limited hours, and refusing to spend them cheaply. When you first begin to say no, people may not understand. They may resist. But over time, those who respect your boundaries will remain, and those who only valued your availability will fade away. What you gain in return is not just time, but integrity. Your life begins to reflect your values, not the demands of others. The truth is that every great work, every deep relationship, every meaningful pursuit is built on the foundation of saying no to what does not matter. Without this courage, your life will not be your own. It will be divided, scattered, consumed by the expectations of others. But with it, your days begin to unify, and unity of time is the beginning of unity of self. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, known for his work on the state of flow, discovered that people feel most fulfilled not when they are comfortable, but when they are deeply absorbed in something that challenges and engages them. In these moments, time seems to disappear, not because it is wasted, but because it is fully lived. Flow requires focus. It requires undivided attention, but in the modern world, attention is constantly fractured. We allow interruptions to shatter our concentration, unaware that each break costs more time than we realize. A single notification may steal only seconds, but it pulls us out of the depth where meaning is created. Re-entering that depth takes far longer than the distraction itself. Seneca warned us that life is squandered not only by open indulgence, but by constant fragmentation. A mind divided cannot live fully. It is stretched thin across trivialities, never gathering its strength for anything lasting. To live deeply is to resist this fragmentation, to protect stretches of time where you can lose yourself in creation, in learning, in love. When you think back on the moments that mattered most, they are rarely the fragmented ones. They are not the quick scrolls, the rushed errands, the scattered multitasking. They are the times when you were fully present, immersed in a conversation, lost in a craft, alive in an experience that drew out your full attention. These are the moments that expand life, not in quantity, but in depth. The tragedy is that most of us guard our possessions more fiercely than we guard our focus. We build locks for our doors and passwords for our accounts, but we leave our time and attention unprotected, open to every trivial demand. Seneca reminds us that if you wish to live fully, you must reverse this. Guard your attention, because it is the gateway to the only life you will ever know. The Stoics practiced Memento Mori, the remembrance of death, not to depress themselves, but to sharpen their appreciation for life. They reminded themselves daily that their time was finite, that tomorrow was never promised, and that each moment must be lived as if it could be the last. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do, say, and think. He was not calling for despair, but for urgency. Because when you remember death, you remember that life is fragile and fragility makes it precious. Most people live as if they will never die. They postpone their dreams, delay their love, and wait for the perfect moment to finally begin living. But later is an illusion. Later is where passion goes to wither and where life quietly disappears. Seneca warned that the greatest tragedy is not that we die, but that so many of us never truly live. Imagine if you could see a countdown clock above your head, showing exactly how many days you had left. Would you keep wasting them on distractions? Or would you begin to choose more carefully who you spend time with, what you devote yourself to, and what you allow to consume your limited hours? You do not need to see the clock to know that it is there. The sand in your hourglass is already falling, whether you watch it or not. This awareness is not meant to paralyze you with fear. It is meant to free you from illusions. When you know that time is slipping, you stop treating it carelessly. You stop trading it for emptiness. You begin to see that every day is both fragile and sacred, and that realization alone has the power to change how you live. The most profound realization you can have is this: you never truly possess time. You only ever experience it in the present moment. The past exists only as memory. The future exists only as imagination. Both are shadows. The present is the only place where life is real. And yet, how often do we abandon it? We replay old regrets, carrying them like heavy stones, or we leap ahead into imagined futures, worrying over events that may never happen. In both cases, we miss the only reality we are ever given: now. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus taught that we should not waste energy on what is beyond our control. Nothing is more beyond our control than yesterday or tomorrow. We cannot rewrite the past, we cannot guarantee the future, but we can choose how we live in this moment, and that choice is everything. When you inhabit the present, time feels richer. A simple conversation becomes alive with detail, the warmth in someone's voice, the light in their eyes. A walk outside becomes more than exercise. It becomes a symphony of sensations, from the crunch of leaves underfoot to the shifting colors of the sky. This is life as it was meant to be lived, not as an abstraction, but as an experience. Living in the present does not mean ignoring the past or neglecting the future. It means letting them serve their proper role. The past is a teacher. The future is a guide. But the present is life itself. If you miss it, you miss everything. Seneca wrote that life is long enough if you know how to use it. To use it means to be awake, to notice, to feel, to live now. Because if you cannot live in this moment, you will not live at all. When you grasp the value of time, something extraordinary happens. Life stops being a blur of days rushing past, and instead sharpens into moments that matter. You stop waiting for the perfect future and begin living in the imperfect present. You stop scattering yourself across distractions and start devoting yourself to what you truly value. This is not about productivity or squeezing more tasks into your schedule. It is about depth, about treating your hours as sacred because they are. Each one is a piece of your existence, exchanged for something. The only question is, are you trading it for emptiness or for meaning? The people who live with depth are not those who have the most years, but those who make their years count. They are the ones who love fiercely, create boldly, and live with presence. They do not drift. They do not postpone. They understand that later is an illusion and now is all they have. Seneca's wisdom is not a relic of the past. It is a mirror for our present. His reminder cuts through every excuse. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Do not waste yours. Guard your hours. Invest them in what matters. Let today be the day you begin to live deliberately, because when you truly grasp the value of time, life gains meaning, and in that meaning, you will find not only clarity, but beauty, not only urgency, but freedom. And when the end comes, as it will for all of us, you will not fear it. You will know you have lived.